Hey everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk About It. We are here with Jessica Field, and I am really excited. Every time we get a chance to do these things, we are always talking to people that absolutely love the work that they do. And Jessica is someone that loves to build others. She loves to pour into others, and she absolutely loves to serve. And so today we're going to talk a lot about talent development, with a sprinkle of leadership development in there as well. So today we're going to have some really great discussion with her, and I'm excited to have you here, Jessica. Thank you for joining us.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for
Awesome.
having me.
Of course, of course. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what led you to what you're doing now.
So I have almost 2 decades of experience in human resources in so many different facets. And, anyone that's been in HR, they'll tell you, I started off as like a generalist. I did a little bit of maybe recruitment, and then it just kind of built from there. So I kind of went through the ranks, right? Recruitment. I went through being an HR business partner, and then somewhere halfway, I had an opportunity to kind of step into talent development, right? And that's where I found my sweet spot. I was like, oh wow, I didn't know this was this was going to be so great for me. And so I tapped into that area, and then I started to merge all my experience, right, between the beginning understandings of the purpose of human resources and what we're there to do as an organization to be a bridge and like a liaison. Right. And then I realized, well, with talent development, it's a great segue because I was a recruiter and I was responsible for finding the best talent. Right. But now I get to step into where I get to develop them, right? So over these last 2 decades, I've kind of honed in on that. So once I found that sweet spot, these last 10 years, I've been very focused on developing staff and realize that it's not just important to develop staff, but leadership as well. So, but outside of that, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, a friend, and I love, they're all equally important. They're also very important. So,
Well, let me ask you this. I know you're very passionate about it. What are some of the things that you're seeing now as it relates to developing talent? Because now with everything in our world with the pandemic and people going virtual and some people still going back to the workplace, like what are you seeing some current challenges when it comes to developing talent in this new economy?
I would say, okay, when the pandemic first hit and we realized we had to pivot and we had to do it quick, there was first a pause. There was a long pause. And at the time I was in healthcare, and that's where we felt it the most, right? Our clinicians serving the communities and those that were hit hard with COVID. So I saw from a different lens, and it was like at least a 2-month pause. And then there were questions like, is talent development important, right? People are scared, unanswered questions. They're getting sick. Families are trying to take care of sick ones and trying to navigate this new, at the time, not even normal. So it's like, do we ask them to get into a class about coaching? Is career development still important? Is this cynical? Is this something that we need to just put to the side? Is there a need, right?
Right.
After we came out the pause, we realized, and then everyone was in this work from home, right? This is right? We realized, oh, wait a minute. It's needed now more than ever. This actually provided an opportunity for people to step back. And so the pause happened in many different ways. Yes, we paused to adjust and really understand what was happening. But then it was like, I got a little more time in a different way. Okay. In a different way, because I'm at home, and that does something. It makes you process what's important to you. And we got more people, I would say, before the pandemic, I would do classes, 3 to 4 classes a week on site, right? The preparation for that. And then those classes would be anywhere from 30 to 50 individuals. Whereas when we offered the virtual space, we had 100 people. And that was every day. We were doing more classes and more training and more people. And what we realized is that they needed a different kind of attention now. And so there was a shift, but we had to it made us more, it wasn't just like, oh, let's teach a coaching class and you come and learn and participate, and then we hope you go back. It was different. We would come in like, hey, how's everybody feeling today? You have to go in this with a different mindset. You have to acknowledge
Right.
It brought more of the humanity into what we do every day, but it was even more
Yeah.
necessary.
Yeah.
Got the questions more because people are like, is it important? And when we polled everyone, it was like, yeah, it is important. Because now
Yes.
people are thinking about, is this even still the right career path?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now their teams are not with them in an office setting, in a room.
Yeah.
So how do I engage my teams? That's what my leaders were saying. And
Mm-hmm.
then my staff, mid-level individuals or individual contributors were saying, is this what I want to do? Maybe,
Yeah.
because COVID also opened up new opportunities for people
Yes.
to use skill sets they didn't even know was probably
Yeah.
valuable. So.
Yeah. Did you find it hard, like for some leaders that you were like working with, where on the same thing that you just said, that they found skills that they didn't know, but they also probably saw some skills that were highlighted that they realized people did not have, if you will, some of
Yeah.
those deficiencies in that area. So what did you see in that capacity?
So yeah, both ways. We saw people tap into dormant skill sets
Mm-hmm.
and bring it back up and realize, hey, I got a passion about something else that I hadn't even tapped
Yeah.
into, right?
Right.
The other was yes, I don't know if this is the best path for me. A lot of light bulbs went off.
Yes.
Every time we survey, it was like, I don't know, because before that, it was the mindset of just getting the work done.
Mm-hmm.
People were on autopilot. And I wouldn't say that I absolutely had individuals who were saying that, hey, with leaders, they found that there were individuals that had skill sets that weren't as strong, but
Mm-hmm.
more so, um, more so, do they feel like the work they were doing was serving them anymore? People were
Mm-hmm.
really vocally, I need to rethink where I'm spending my time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So it was
Right.
more so, is this what I desire to do?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there space for me to recreate something new for myself in my organization?
Yeah.
We had people be transparent and said, hey, I don't even know if I want to stay in this space. I may want to go into something totally new. And so
Yeah.
we had to be open to that, and have those real
Right.
transparent conversations.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because even with that, having those conversations, having people look at, is this for me, not for me, and looking at the different challenges there, I would think that it would also affect the culture, the organizational culture in the midst of that. So what are some of the things that you've noticed, and things that maybe you can provide some ideas or concepts on how to maintain organizational culture when there are shifting talent pools and development and all those things in that area?
Well, first of all, I think it is making it a priority, because I feel
Mhm.
like with the kind of shift we've gone through, this transition in the
Mhm.
last 2 years, we even had the great resignation, right?
Right,
And they
right,
were talking about back in
yes,
November, right?
yes.
So I think as a culture, organizations have to continuously be vocal and
Okay.
provide support. I feel like support is the biggest thing. That's why this is so
Mhm.
important. That's why we got even more busier during the
Yes.
pandemic, because support was needed in so many different ways. Whether it was mental support,
Right.
uh, but Zoom fatigue is a real thing, right?
Yes.
It is, the meetings, because now you don't need the preparation or time space between meetings. Meetings are
Hmm.
just today alone. I want to say I've been in 2-hour meetings
Oh,
and one
wow.
30-minute meeting, and I think we're at noon, right? So,
Yeah.
where that would have not probably been so close together otherwise.
Hmm.
So I think for organization and leaders in particular, they have to first meet people where they are and keep
Right.
community. This is not the time to disconnect from the goals, the values, and the purpose of your organization.
Hmm.
And then leadership needs to be present.
Yeah.
They need to check in, vocalize, and it's hard. It gets difficult because it's like, well,
Yeah.
especially if you're in a culture that used to be in person and now they're all virtual. A lot of organizations are choosing that path. So
Hmm.
how do I maintain that?
Yeah.
As much as we may be tired of the Zoom calls, right? Connect just to see
Yeah.
how everyone's doing, not meeting to get
Hmm.
a project done, not
Right.
meeting to plan, but just how are we doing? And
Hmm.
getting everybody to communicate that,
Yeah.
including everyone. And when
Right.
you see your organization, even if it's an email blast, and it says, hey, are you checking in on are you doing self-care? That's
Hmm.
big. That's saying
Yes.
that's my organization giving me permission.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're acknowledging that, hey, we're in a
Hmm.
different climate. We're human beings. We're humans being,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's okay. If I see an email from my organization or from my CEO or president and it says,
Mm-hmm.
this is just to say, hey, everyone, thank you for your doing and take some time for self-care.
Yes.
We've seen organizations implement days, 1 day a month that they just give everyone off
Oh, that's
just for
nice.
self-care. Right. They
That's
polled everyone and said,
nice.
hey, how would you, because they said that, you know, they gave them extra PTO days. The
Yeah.
reason why that didn't work is because people would choose to take them, but then it doesn't stop your email from blowing up because everyone else is not off. So they shut the company down. No
Oh,
work gets
wow.
done. No emails.
I
They
like
totally
that.
right, right. And these are days once a month.
Hmm.
You still get paid. The whole company is off,
It reminds me a
right?
little bit of like Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A does that on Sundays. They
Sundays.
like every Sunday, people know they're going to shut down and they give their families and to do whatever they want to do on that day. And I love
Right.
that. I
Now,
love
the
that.
only problem for us who don't work at Chick-fil-A but love Chick-fil-A, you only want Chick-fil-A on a Sunday. I don't like I wake up like, oh, I want a chicken biscuit. It's on a Sunday, but
Right.
right.
Oh,
But
we
I
have been
respect
there.
that. Right. But I feel like, but I respect that they do that,
Yeah.
So, but yes, I think part of that is communicate is not
Hmm.
the time to pull back on communicating
Right.
the it's even more time to kind of put a hug around your
Hmm.
organization.
Yeah.
And we're still committed to what we do every day, but how
Hmm.
can we help you all as our
Right.
frontline, as our middle level management, as our leadership do it the best way during what
Right.
we're navigating, right? But we support you, and this is how.
Yeah.
Acknowledgement goes a long way.
It does. And I think it was even more highlighted like during the pandemic more so just how much that was valuable for people
Mhm.
because when you are disconnected and virtually it's so easy to disconnect and not feel as a
Right.
part of the team if you will because like you said Zoom fatigue I think all of us were like oh my god another Zoom call nobody wanted to
Right.
be on that but when you're getting acknowledgement we even have people that would reach out to us to send stuff to their respective teams and employees to let them know they're thinking of them and they care about them and it was interesting because it wasn't like business related things they wanted things like self-care
Yes.
something that will make them feel good. And I think that helps build that culture, but also make people feel very much that they're seen and that they
Right.
understand that this is a different time, if you will. So,
Right. And it gives people, like I said, it gives people permission that we didn't have
mhm.
before. Before it was like go, go,
Yeah.
go.
Right, right.
If you had, I don't, you could almost be ready to pass out. You're still expected to come work sick. Now you got to
Yeah.
cough, stay back, right?
Yeah,
So everything has changed.
that's true.
It's like you can't even clear your throat anymore, right? But I will say this, Kim, as it relates to that Zoom fatigue, it depends on what we're spending that time. And that's why I say sometimes
Mhm.
it's the purpose of it, right?
Right, right.
I've seen organizations that I've communicated with where they say, hey, you know what? If we have meetings on Fridays, we don't do any cameras. So I don't
Hmm.
care if your hair is messy,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
you have on a sweatshirt, whatever you
Hmm.
come, we're not doing any cameras. That's our rule. Any
Yeah.
Friday meetings, no cameras. Or,
Hmm.
like this. So I have all these
Hmm.
meetings today, but I get this little break that yes, it's still
Yeah,
virtual, yes, it's
yeah.
still Zoom, but it's
Hmm.
energizing. So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to put the task aside and
Hmm.
leave space for us to,
Yeah.
connect and be empathetic and engage.
Very important. I know something that you're really passionate about is development and developing
Mhm.
people. So talk to me a little bit about what continuous people coaching. I know it's a term that you use.
Yeah.
What is that exactly, and why is that something that is very valuable in an organization?
When I think of continuous people coaching, what I realize, and again, this really came from me moving from talent acquisition to talent
Hmm.
development, because a
Hmm.
lot of times when I was in talent acquisition, I became a coach to my new hires. I was
Mm.
their first point of contact. I was the first relationship they built within this organization that they were
Right,
taking a chance at. This was something, if you step in the mind of someone that is looking for employment, and
right.
even maybe not just employment, because at that time I was working in an organization that was a pretty well recognized nationwide, and
Hmm.
so for many people it was their dream job, and
Yeah.
you're representing this, I'm their first representation, right?
Right, right.
So you build those relationships with those that you bring in that door, and so then they
Hmm.
kind of go back to you,
Yeah, yeah.
like when they have
Yes,
questions, even though I'm like,
yes.
I'm talent acquisition, I may not have the answers, but I help you find it. And so
Yeah.
you begin to build that trust. And then
Hmm.
when I went into talent development, I realized sometimes I was coaching individuals who
Mm-hmm.
I had actually brought in,
Mm.
or I was coaching leaders who I
Mm-hmm.
used to recruit for, right?
Oh, wow.
And so
Yeah.
I realized that that was such a very important space, just as
Mm-hmm.
important as me being a representation for that initial connect and walking a candidate through the hiring process or guiding a
Mm-hmm.
manager through
Yeah.
finding their best talent. Now I'm on the other side. So how do we grow from this?
Right.
How do we set you up for success? How do we from the beginning tap
Mm-hmm.
into your goals? And it's not, and I tell you, anyone will tell you when you first start an organization what happens. You have a new hire orientation and give you this big
Mm-hmm.
book
Mm-hmm.
of
Yep.
stuff
Yep.
and say read, remember, and fill out all these documents,
Yeah.
give us all your information, your firstborn and second, right? It's this big process. And then
Yeah.
when's the next training? 6 months down the
Mm-hmm.
line when there's
Mm-hmm.
regulatory stuff because you have
Yeah.
to have it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Yeah.
When you stop and ask someone, well, when's the last time your manager checked in with you about,
Mm.
your goals? Is this
Right.
lining up with
Right.
what you want to do? And it's almost this unspoken thing that, you know, it's also giving people permission, especially if they're not in leadership yet, to be okay saying, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if this lining up.
Yeah.
And them not being it's almost like them not being penalized or looked at as
Mm-hmm.
incompetent because it doesn't fit. But how can we realign you? I can't tell you how many times I career coach internal employees, and we just found another space for them.
Yeah.
This just wasn't the right space. Well, how do we find that out? We continuously coach. We
Right.
don't just
Right.
coach at the beginning when you
Yeah.
walk through the door. We continually check in. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, it's been reduced to surveys, mid-year
Mm.
surveys, quarterly surveys.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're supposed to trust them when answer, you answer honestly that your organization is going to acknowledge and change things. And people don't have trust in those things anymore,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? They don't have trust because they don't see change or at least acknowledgement.
Mm-hmm.
No, I rather take what this is what I long for. And I was working with the client not too long ago, and it was around the same thing, building this
Mm-hmm.
survey. And I said, you know what I would like to see leaders do, or the top leadership, because they were asking me, what do I suggest
Yeah.
the top leadership person who was going to address this survey, what do I suggest they do? I said, be transparent,
Mm.
talk about
Yeah.
the pain points, even if they
Yeah.
don't want to. If the
Yeah.
survey yielded that there's not an inclusive
Mm-hmm.
environment, say
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
And it's okay to say, and you know what? We heard you. We
Mm-hmm.
don't have a solution, but we're going to work
Right.
on it.
That
People are shocked that
acknowledgement.
people will say, oh, they actually acknowledged it.
Yep. Yep.
They will just be acknowledged it, because when they don't, because companies like to go in those recaps about surveys and say,
Mm-hmm.
they say, this is where we're doing great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they don't spend a little time on that improvement, and then they challenge the downline leadership to challenge that, when really it needs
Mm-hmm.
the message needs to come up from higher up, so
Yeah.
that everybody is on the same page,
Right.
and it puts
Yeah.
momentum behind it. So continuous coaching is coaching that just takes place through the course of your entire career.
Mm-hmm.
And when you move from being that individual contributor and now you're in leadership,
Yeah.
you're supposed to do the same thing. Now you're in the
Yeah.
position to give that coaching to someone else. But it's continuous. And if you are coaching well at the beginning, finding out what's important to your
Mm-hmm.
staff, finding out what motivates them,
Right.
um, identifying, letting them know if this doesn't work for you, giving them permission to not be okay
Mm-hmm.
with some things, and
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
communicate with you, and you'll partner with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You will see people having more, what's the word for it, will improve their longevity at an
Yes.
organization, right?
Yes.
Retention. You'll
Yes.
see that. You'll see them want to grow. We all heard it. People leave people, not
Mm-hmm.
organizations. And if you're doing
True.
that,
True.
people will stay where they have a good leader, not boss,
Mm-hmm.
right? A
Yeah.
good leader. They will stay no matter how much
Yeah.
money you offer them, because they love what they do and they love the support they're getting. And then they have a vision, and they know their vision
Yeah.
will be supported as they grow. So it's continuous. It doesn't stop. If anything, you may
Mm-hmm.
transition from being, like I said, the one being coached to being the one that coaches. That's the
Yeah.
goal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Let me ask you this, and this could be like our closing question, because I think this is
All right.
something that many people have experienced. So on two sides of the coin. There are some people that won't get the coaching from their place of employment because they don't value that. So what would someone do in that case? Because oftentimes I find that's a big issue, but on the other side of the coin too is the other issue of that some people feel like they don't need the coaching because of their education. And so they feel like that's going to get them to the different levels of, in the corporate world. So it's kind of two questions, maybe in one, like, what do you do if I don't get that support? The other end of that, if they're relying on education and not so much their experience and development, how can someone like that be challenged to keep the continuous improvement as well?
Absolutely. And so for the first one, that can be so very challenging when you're not getting the support from your direct leader, and that happens. I can't tell how many times in which created a space for me,
Right.
for with a lot of individuals where I worked. Your coach, your mentor, your sponsor doesn't have to be the person that's directly over you.
Right.
Yes, they can be an ally, they can help. But however, the first thing is to be your own advocate and get clear about the direction you want to
Love
go,
that. Yeah.
right? For
Yeah.
yourself, okay?
Yeah.
And you can start to make connections within your department, your organization, with other people that you've come in contact with, right? And let them know. And it's really simple. I had someone coach me on how to do that originally. I was like, well, how do you, if it's not my direct client, isn't it? It's always like, well, am I going around them then if I go to someone else? But it's not like you're trying to do something without their permission. You're trying to get guidance on your next steps, right? So I identified someone who was not in my department, but I'd worked with previously, and I liked their approach.
Okay.
Right. I saw them move up to where I wanted to be. And so I just had the conversation, hey, I value you. I value what you've done. Can I start to connect with you more often for guidance, right? So that's one thing. But if you don't see that in your organization at all, maybe you're like, you know what, there's no one I'm identifying with. I don't even know if this works. Then that, again, you have to do some self-reflection. Maybe I need to segue into a different area, a different company, really think about what I want to do. You want to identify something that not just serves you, but others. But it does need to have that reciprocal thing, right? For you, so you can stay motivated in what you do.
Exactly.
Right. And so the other half of that, what was the second part of your question?
On the other side of that, I've seen people who are very heavily degreed and feel like they can rest on that versus trying to do other things that can keep growing.
Let me tell you, your education is invaluable, right?
Yes.
It will be your introduction into your expertise. However, it's not gonna, no day's the same. It's not gonna always teach you how to lead others.
Yes.
It doesn't. Those soft skills are so important. You can have the education, but if you don't focus on knowing how to build a relationship, communicate clearly, right?
Yes.
Be okay with not being okay or not knowing everything. People, I always say this, that we sense before we do anything. And you can have all the great knowledge to share that you've researched and you've approved, and it's antiquated and anecdoted, and everything, right? But if you are not coming from an authentic place, and offering yourself up to that experience, people will be just as guarded as you are. Leading others is almost less about all your textbook knowledge than it is about you being authentic, transparent, and meeting people where they are. And that's what people gravitate to. We can get to all the knowledge, right? However, I have to be able to trust you. I have to be able to connect with you. Then I'll go with you where you want to go. Right?
No, that makes sense. Makes sense. It does. So how would someone work with you? Like, I know, like I said, this is an area that you're passionate about, working with leaders, and more importantly, also the talent and development side of it. I know that's something that you have a passion for. So talk to us a little bit about that. What would that process look like with you?
Absolutely. Well, first, I would want to know, do they need one-on-one as leaders, or is it more team? I have individuals that will say, hey, I just need to connect with my team more. But then you have to be open to having like we need to have an evaluation for you, because you have to be able to support. And so I need to know what your support looks like on a leadership level. Okay. But they can reach out to me to to discuss that. That's where it starts.
Yeah.
And what I can offer, it could be just coaching, connecting with your staff, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
you're going through a lot of change in terms of transition, and we need to
Mm-hmm.
have it, have a course where everyone understands what that looks like, right?
Yeah. Right.
Or
Right.
maybe it's the tough stuff. We need to have some
Yeah.
difficult conversations, and we
Yes.
need to hold each other accountable, right? So
Yeah.
it's the warm and fuzzy, and it's also the tough stuff that we need for the team to really grow,
Yeah.
so that we can move forward. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, that's where it would start, identifying
Okay.
the need. And but then also, if it's leaders reaching out to me, they need to be open to
Mm-hmm.
definitely be committed to being part of that solution, and we
Mm-hmm.
need to understand what their support looks like as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. I love that. So do you have a website or something that we
Yes.
can connect? And we'll also include it too in our show notes, but we'd love for you to share that too.
Yes, so
Mm-hmm.
guidedfieldsllc.com. That's
Mm-hmm.
Guided Fields, my last name, llc.com. And then I can also be emailed at guidedfields@icloud.com. So, yeah,
Awesome.
very simple.
Cool.
Yeah.
So as we get ready to close this out, is there any closing thoughts you want to share with any leaders or anyone listening to this as it relates to talent development?
For leaders, I would say, um, be very clear about where your team is,
Mm-hmm.
and be very honest with yourself about the time and effort you've put in to develop your team, to
Yeah.
communicate, to engage, to understand, how have you offered yourself up?
Right.
Do
Right.
you just say that you have an quote unquote open door policy
Mm-hmm.
nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
or are
Yeah.
you really showing yourself to be available? And to evaluate that for yourself, to think
Right.
about what you would have wanted on your journey, and see if you can be that bridge for someone else.
Yeah.
And then if it's someone who's listening, like, hey, I'm not a leader, but my team needs this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know, I say kudos, right? That
Mm-hmm.
you're not just thinking of what's next best for you, but you're like, I want our team to be better. Sometimes we got to manage up, right? And
Yes.
you may have to connect and
Yes.
say, hey, I listened to a podcast, and there was this young woman on there, and she does this, and I think our team needs
Mm-hmm.
this, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
I've done it before. I've done it so many times, because again, sometimes our leaders are stretched. They may
Mm-hmm.
not be.
Mm-hmm.
They may see it and may not be in a space where they could do something about it right now.
Right. Right.
And when we get vocal that we need it, they may pause and say, wait a minute, let me listen to my team. Let me make this
Yeah.
happen, right? But as a leader, definitely identify where you need that help.
Mm.
It doesn't make you a bad leader if you're not doing it all right now. It does not mean that.
Yeah.
It's a lot going on.
Yes.
It's a lot going on, a lot to
Yeah.
manage.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
were not taught how to handle um, all the stresses and the emotional side, or
Mm-hmm.
the psychological side of working through a
Yes.
pandemic. And
Yes.
so, why not get some help with that?
I love
So
that.
yeah, yeah.
No, I'm not gonna add nothing to that. I love
Yeah.
it. Because you're right, and I think
Yeah,
that's why I think leaders need coaching. They need their own
right.
development, then their own person that they can go to kind of work through some of those different things, because it is challenging. And I think just even as I still wasn't going to add into it, but I'm not adding to what you
No,
said per
go
se, but I'm
ahead.
agreeing with what you're saying, is that when you have all the different roles you have to play personally and professionally, then you got to show up and lead others, like you said, in the middle of a pandemic and all the stuff that happens with that. That could be challenging and taxing
Yeah,
to a leader too, because the responsibility is even heavier. So that's why I
absolutely.
love, when you talk about self-care and making sure that you take care of yourself so you can take care of others, and keep yourself in a place of growing and challenging your own self, because that's the only way they're going to keep being healthy as a leader. And I know that's something you talk
Absolutely.
about too, like everyday
Yeah.
leadership. You got to take care of yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's
Ah,
it.
well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And like I said, we're going to put your information on there. And if anyone has any questions, definitely reach out to her. I think it's one thing to hire someone in this space, but it's another thing to hire somebody that actually is very passionate about developing people, because that is not an easy area. Because developing people, you got to deal with all their stuff too.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jessica, so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I
Oh,
really
yeah.
enjoyed it.
Oh, you're
All right.
welcome. All right. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.